Again. I am not the center of this conversation. I am here and thrilled to have a conversation about boards, public boards, private boards, with two people who I've gotten to know over time, who I respect a tremendous amount, and who I learn from in every interaction, which is an underlying theme of why we're all here today. Let's start with you introducing yourselves in the way that you'd like us all to know you. So, Lauren, please.
I'm a mother of 5 kids. No, let's not start there. Lauren Tyler, I have 40 years almost of work experience. The first 20 as an investment banker and private equity person, private equity sitting on boards. And then I spent 20 plus years at JP Morgan, running audit, global audit, running investor relations globally during many crises that we had. And in the last 8 years, running HR for the asset wealth management business, which is roughly 30,000 people, as well as being responsible for employees in India and the Philippines.
And we're here to talk about a view from the boardroom.
Yes.
Would you share your experiences in the past and currently in the boardroom?
Surely. So, as mentioned, I sat on a number of boards as a private equity investor. And then right after business school, I sat on my first public board, which was a retail company. And then most recently, I sat on a board called Allegheny Corp, which we sold to Warren Buffett. And that was all while at JP Morgan. And now I sit on a company called Cencora, which is a $300 billion pharmaceutical distribution company, and a company called Guardian Life, which is a life insurance company.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Grace.
Sure. So I started my career under Edie's leadership, which you may not remember, but I was at Goldman Sachs, and she was running the HR function and so well respected at the firm. But I cold called the 1-800 number on the side of the Chobani yogurt cup, which resulted in me working at Chobani for 10 years.
Okay. What did you call them for? A job?
Private wealth management. Don't worry.
Okay.
They were opening an account. And, I'm earlier in my career. I'm in my 40s. I will start by saying I'm a mom of 2 kids. I have a 9-year-old boy, Charlie, and a 7-year-old girl, Ellie. They're in the public schools in Mamaroneck, where we live. And I spent 10 years at Chobani. Half of my time there was in corporate strategy and development. The other half was running the HR team as the chief people and culture officer. And in taking that role, and this might be appreciated by folks in the room, I wanted to rebrand us from human resources and manufacturing to people and culture. And this was back in 2016 when maybe these conversations weren't as popular. And then I moved on to Cotopaxi, where I've served as chief people and impact officer, overseeing ESG reporting, sustainability at a B corporation, and also overseeing the HR team and the legal team. And just this year, because of an organization called Women on Boards, I joined my first private company board, King Arthur Baking Company, which I'm sure we will talk more about today. Experience in the boardroom for me has been really amazing. I mean, the companies I've worked for are so impact focused that, being the head of HR, typically I had a seat in a lot of the board meetings, not just on topics like executive compensation, pay, benefits, engagement, but really a whole wide range. And I think because of those experiences, I've been even more excited to contribute as an independent board member.
So I'm sure there's a lot of interest and curiosity around the approach that you each took to find interesting board opportunities. And what were you thinking when you started your conversation focused on not just whether you wanted to serve on a board, whether you wanted to serve on public versus private? Perhaps we could start talking about your journey to King Arthur.
Sure. Well, I've always been a little ambitious. So I think there was a piece of me that felt I should do it. Like I should be on boards. That should be a goal. And Lisa Shallett, who I think is in the room today somewhere, had given me some good advice that it doesn't have to be now. It just needs to be the right thing and it will come. And in time, it did come. I mean, King Arthur was such a great fit for me because of the values alignment with the things that I care about. I'm a baker. I love the B Corp orientation of the business. Importantly, it's an ESOP. So it's very focused. We have a fiduciary duty to the employees.
Just for everyone
Sure.
to define what an ESOP is.
Sure. It's an employee stock ownership plan where essentially the employees own the business. And we have a duty both to the trust that oversees the assets in the ESOP, as well as making decisions decisions that promote long-term value in the ESOP, with the goal that many folks at King Arthur will retire with great value appreciation in their accounts. And so our orientation as board members is in large part about serving the baker, but right beside it, serving the employee because of the structure of the company. In my 30s, I started networking, thinking that that would serve me well long term. I met an amazing woman named Kara Roll, who sadly died of brain cancer. She was a partner at VMG, and she had kept some notes about my interest in career. And literally 10 years later, women on boards reached out about an opportunity with King Arthur. So I think networking, having your authentic story, we've been talking a lot about authenticity today and who you are, and finding a place where you can really contribute and add value versus just being on a board for the sake of being on a board. That's the best advice that I can give.
So thank you for sharing that, Lauren. I'm sure you've had experience on the boards from a lot of different vantage points. Given you have spent so much time with boards, what did you consider when you were approached, as I know you were, for many opportunities?
So the first two boards that I was approached for were the CML and Allegheny, and both of which I knew someone on the board who said, would you please come in? After that, after Allegheny was sold, I actually didn't have a board, and I was still at JP Morgan, and I really wanted to sit on a board. And so I really went very technically and thought, what am I providing? I'm providing audit experience, investor relations experience, both of which were in a crisis, sort of situation during the financial crisis. And I'm providing HR experience as well. So I put that together. I literally looked at some companies that I would love to sit on the board of, none of which happened, but it really helped me put together what I was providing and what companies had. And then I, went out to my network, and that's how it came to be on the Cencora as well as the Guardian board. Folks, you go out very proactively, and then it just kind of all happens. There's no great market. Headhunters are fantastic. They don't bring all of the board situations, but you figure out what you want. And I really wanted a great culture of the board. And by the way, you will get calls and you actually have to say no, because if the culture is not right, it will not be a great experience. And you don't just hop on and off boards. You make a commitment to the company. You are responsible and really acting on behalf of the shareholders. So you make that decision very, very carefully. So it's, the culture of the board, what I think I'm going to get and what I'm going to learn out of the situation, out of the board. And for me, the Cencora, my family is a family that has owned pharmacies for generations. And so to be on a pharmaceutical distribution company was fantastic for me. I understood that business. So that was something that I wanted to do. So what I'm going to get, what they're going to get from me, and whether or not it's a great culture, those are the three big things for me on every board decision that I make.
Terrific. Thanks for giving us that perspective. We've heard about so many important things that are top of mind for leaders today. We heard that the external macro environment, the challenges with respect to the discourse being challenged, the rapid impact of AI and generative AI on the way people work, the people that are coming to work. I think we heard earlier that there are now 6 generations of folks who are working in the same space. How much of this has gotten to the board of the companies that you serve on? And how do you get yourself prepared to deliver into the responsibility that you have, which is governance, whether it's the shareholders who are public shareholders or employees in the case of King Arthur? How do you take all that on?
So the first part, if I may, is the role of the board has not changed that dramatically. It is, as you said, it's governance, it's representing the shareholder. After that, the scrutiny and what's going on today, AI, cyber is huge.
Good point.
Cyber is huge. So you hear so much of that at the board. We talk about AI at all of my boards. We talk about cyber at all of my boards. So, and I sit on 2 not-for-profit boards as well. So how do you get educated? You read a lot. And typically you will have a tech person who sits on the board, and of course the tech group comes and presents to the board, and you read as much as you possibly can. That is your responsibility, is to stay up to speed.
You know, I'm a first-time board member at a private company board, and I will say the thing I've taken away from it is we have a very diverse group of people on our board, where we have diversity of experience, age, ethnicity, locale, and it adds so much to the conversation, and to really be talking about not only risk, but also opportunity for the business and markets we're not reaching today, places we could stretch the brand, places where we want to take the brand where we never thought it could go before, and providing both that, you know, balance of governance and promoting growth for the ESOP, right? So that's been a wonderful thing. I think on any issue we're taking on as a board, we're talking about the macro around it, sustainability, DEI, all the issues, or the environment that we live around the issue that we're discussing and contemplating. It's been super interesting. And with that, I think I don't want to say it used to be, but I think it was that there's the IT person, the finance person, the HR person. And one of the first things I was told when I was invited to join the King Arthur board, was such an honor, was please show up as your full self. Please contribute in a full way. Don't just think that you're only going to comment when it's HR and raise your hand. We really want you to be engaged. And what an invitation. And, you know, if more board members are acting on behalf of all the stakeholders in that way, I think there could be just tremendous outcomes.
Share with us your experiences interacting with HR leaders who interact with the board. You know, traditionally you would think about the conversations being centered around, you know, compensation, succession. Is it still limited to that, or has it gotten broader in your experience? Lauren, why don't you take that?
Yes.
Given your...
So I will say that in both of my corporate boards, as well as actually my not-for-profit boards, HR is paramount. I mean, it touches every single thing. If we don't have the talent, we don't have a business. If we don't have succession planning, we don't have a business. And I would say succession planning is perhaps one or two, you know, most important thing for the board to actually get right. And so that ready now, ready later, we talk about that. Every company does it. You all do it. We do it at the board as well, and we talk about it. So, you know, compensation, DE&I, succession planning, talent management, training are so critical. And so all of that is talked at the board, spoken about at the board. And we just have, you know, that extra experience, which is really nice. And people do look at us, but I'll also say, you know, it is really nice. They look at you for everything. Yeah. So you need to be a well-rounded player to be at the table.
And you've mentioned that it's a really unique opportunity to work with the leaders of King Arthur because they're all there.
Yeah.
They bring in a number of leaders to the board conversations. You want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. The whole senior leadership team sits through the board meeting. It's like we're one collective group trying to make the best decisions possible for this beautiful business and brand that's been around for 230 years. I mean, we've done a lot of things right. Not every year, I'm sure, has been great in the difficult times, but you think about the history of this company, one of America's oldest companies. It's an ESOP. We have a fiduciary duty to the employees, to the stakeholders in the community, and we're all in it together. It's powerful. We have exec session. It's not that they're there the whole time, but I think that's been really meaningful. On the role of the CHRO, what I've noticed in the boardroom is the CEO needing that partnership in the boardroom in addition to the day-to-day. And I think the skills and capabilities of CHROs have been, and Anish was talking about this too, escalated to such a degree that they have to be a strategist and understand the business and get the relationship of employer brand and brand, understand how to drive engagement forward, have a point of view on remote work, be an expert in safety. And all these things, maybe I don't have it right, but it does feel like it's really escalated in the past 3 years. And so the expectations on this position, not just from the CEO as partner, confident, in the room, in the boardroom, but the board members are seeking these answers from the CHRO as well. So, but I think that creates opportunity for everyone in this room to learn and grow to become that type of leader for the organizations you work for and represent.
And do you find that there is a way that leaders in organizations should interact with the board to be most helpful, and ways that are not so helpful?
I have a great piece of advice. I'm an okay listener. I think I've gotten better. But someone said, and you're an amazing listener. I can already tell everyone in this room knows that about you, Edie, but about hearing versus listening. And I think being in that boardroom and really being present, board members are also very busy, and many of them are in full-time operating roles. And so like checking the emails while people, I mean, you have to be really present in that room and hear and take it all in, so that when you contribute to the conversations, you're building and not taking away. So that's something I've been hyper mindful of and sensitive in the room. And I think like in any company situation, it's, when is it governance and when does it feel like, wow, you're really involved? And finding that right balance depending on what the company needs and the stages that it's going through. I mean, I've been at companies where the involvement of the board has helped at a deeper way, has helped tremendously get the company to the next phase of growth. But at other companies, it's just structured differently.
Yeah, I would add that as far as the compensation committee, as much as possible, give as many comparables as you possibly can, really narrow into an answer there. And then transparency. Just, your board members want the best for you and for the entire company. So transparency is just critical. Just say it like it is. We need to hear it.
And I would just add a couple of things to that. First of all, listening is really important. Asking questions is equally very important. And it's very liberating, actually, to be in a governance structure where you really literally get to ask whatever you want.
Yes.
Now, you have to police yourself, right? Because there's always a very thick agenda. There's lots of stuff to cover. There are things that you have to, over time, figure out are appropriate to ask in a big, broad setting. And then there are things that you might want to follow up directly with the CEO or the business leader. And so, being willing to put yourself out there and ask questions, particularly in areas where you're not a subject matter expert. I don't really think at times it's really helpful for me to drill down with the CHRO on the leadership development pipeline. I do that. I don't need to do it in the moment.
Correct.
Sometimes it's helpful for me to ask questions to the person who's leading an AI initiative because I don't do it all day.
Yeah.
And that judgment really matters. How do you develop that judgment in the early days? How do you make sure that you develop those signals to know when to go there and when not to?
Yeah. So first of all, Grace's answer, yes, you have to be a fantastic listener. But two, you also are there they spent so many hours preparing this information. So you're there to help support and not, this is not my team and I can't say you're off. You really need to be supportive of the team, but at the same time say, did you think about this? It's all about how you ask the question. You can ask it really drilled, or you can say, how many other things did you consider? And how did you get to this conclusion? And, you just ask it very carefully and very thoughtfully. And it took time, and I've seen board members not do that. And then the team shuts down, and that is not good. And so you really spend a lot of time getting to have your questions in the right frame.
Yeah. I've asked the other board members for feedback.
Great point.
It's my first year. Am I asking too many questions? Have I said I'm a newbie too many times? Now they get it, and so I think asking for feedback, especially we have a phenomenal chair at King Arthur, and we're lucky to have that seat with someone who's just loved by all of us. And so asking, him and other members of the board has been really helpful.
And by the way, most boards actually have an evaluation process that's an annual or twice, once every other year process. And we write about and talk about each other. And the lead director will call and say, what do you think you're learning? And, is so-and-so helpful? And it's a really important process. So it's a dynamic organization.
And you're in an operating role and serving on a board at the same time.
Yes.
Do you find that the things that you are juggling as a board member and the thinking that goes on in the boardroom is helpful to you in your operating role? And would you advocate for people who are in operating roles to add that to their portfolio? What do you think?
And yes, I think because they're so different. I mean, one is a young up and coming brand that's trying to find its way, almost 10 years old. The other is a 230-year-old company but in a way it's been perfect because there are things from a governance perspective that King Arthur's doing that just make sense. We should probably do that at our board meeting too. So I've been able to bring some things over that's been helpful. But I have to remember I'm not a board member at Cotopaxi. I'm an employee and I have a job and a duty to the company. And I have to be thoughtful if I can reserve my board member kind of style for my King Arthur job. I think that's a differentiator too. Like you're different roles in different places. And that is something I keep in check when I'm, representing the HR team at Cotopaxi.
So you're supporting the brand at Cotopaxi. I want everybody to know.
Yes,
right?
And it's a little chilly, so I thought I'll just wear it.
Exactly.
Brand recognition, we take anything we can get.
I was just thinking, like, you don't have those poppy colors, though. I always
the dead stock material. Yep. Yeah. Yes.
And so I do think your point around a 240-year-old company,
230-ish,
230-year-ish company, and a newer company, that there are actually things that are relevant from the 230-year-old company
oh, for sure.
in a newer company. So, I mean, it's a little bit off piece, but I think it's very important for this group to consider that there may be some old school things that are important, like what? From a governance perspective?
Well, I don't know if our board had an in-depth conversation on AI, and we did at King Arthur. I mean, so I think it's a little bit of
interesting point.
Where we've managed risk for so many years. We want to spend some time thinking about what's coming around the corner. And when you're on the board or involved in a high growth business, you're thinking about the matter of the day. You're thinking about the matter of the week. You're thinking, do we have the right people? Do we have the right infrastructure? Everything needs to be built so quickly to make it work and make it all come together. But you do need to press the brakes sometimes and say, wait a second, we probably should just assess this thing that a bigger company does on a more routine basis. Let's do that thing with our board as well. One of the things that I've brought from Cotopaxi to King Arthur has been around impact measurement and reporting. We talk about it with the board. We have a whole list of impact and sustainability metrics that we actively manage against, talk about them on a quarterly basis at a young company. Let's take some of those metrics and measurements to a business that cares just as much. King Arthur's also a B corporation, deeply committed to regenerative agriculture, lots of great things going on. Should we put some metrics and measures around that? So I think it's gone both ways and been very useful. And that's why I'd ask your second question. Absolutely, yes, because it's just another learning opportunity. And you grow from that and you can bring it to the organization that you're at and add value.
Well, I think the data point is something that we all need to think about in our leadership roles, how to make sure we get the human right and all the aspects of that. And then couple that with the analytical muscle that we've heard so much, and the advancement of analytical muscle to really deliver the data that supports all things. Now, in conclusion, I have one question. We are at a charter conference with some of the best minds out there in the leadership talent space. From the board lens or from your experiences, what are the key takeaways for you going forward in your board seat with respect to people and talent? Are you talking about it? Are you engaged with it? Share your thoughts and advice on how to make sure it stays front and center.
We talk about it at every single session. It's the most paramount conversation we have is about talent. And the AI conversation that we just had is actually beyond what we're doing in some of our companies. So that's paramount.
Thank you. Grace.
I would say one of the first questions at every board meeting, how's the culture? How are the people? What's going on with engagement? But I'm going to add a 6C to Anisha's 5 around character and our character. And I think what's really an opportunity about being on a board is that you have a duty of care to the organization that you're serving. It gives you the opportunity to kind of flex that muscle a bit. And I think that serves you well in really every dimension of your life. So I thought I would close with that more personal benefit that I'm gaining from having that duty of care to such a wonderful organization.
Grace, Lauren, thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.